It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
Off and running. Welcome in another edition of Musso at the box. Fired up to have everybody with me. Thank you for being here as well. We are just 14 days away, 2 weeks from opening day when LSU faces Purdue Fort Wayne on Valentine's Day at the box. First pitch set for 2 p.m. We still have a lot to go over before we get to that point. We're going to kind of dive into some of that here today. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Please get subscribed up to the YouTube channel if you have not already, as well on your favorite podcast app. Wherever you get your podcast, just search Musso at the Box. Hit the subscribe there. That way you can take me wherever you go. Wherever you go, you have us with you, and you can listen in for your daily dose of LSU baseball. Here's what I want to break down and go through today. Breakdown, probably not a great word. Here's what I want to go through today. As we said, right off the jump there, 14 days, 2 weeks. So LSU set for 3 more scrimmages this weekend at the box, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Give you 3 things that I'm kind of looking for in those 3 scrimmages that will come back here next week, obviously, and talk plenty about. And then D1Baseball.com, they're starting there to release their top 10 players at each position in the country. LSU has landed 2 guys on 2 separate lists. Do want to talk about that. Jared Jones when it comes to first base, Luis Hernandez when it comes to catcher. So we'll run through all of that here as well. Let's go ahead and dive right in, actually, shall we? And we'll start with the scrimmages. So, as I said, 3 scrimmages. That's opposed to 4 a week ago. So one thing that's going to do is it's going to condense the schedule. They'll probably play a little bit longer, and you'll be able to see more guys get into certain games. When you're playing 4, they spread that out. Like last Sunday, LSU played 5 innings. You saw 4 pitchers. That will change with 1 less game, obviously, right? So that's in and of itself intriguing, but that's not part of the 3 things. But I am excited to be able to get eyes on more pitchers. I'll be out there twice this weekend. So get a better feel for arms, roles, position battles, all of those things, while keeping in mind, of course, we're 2 weeks from opening day, and it's preseason practice, and you take all that with a grain of salt, right? Everything that we always talk about. But I am excited to get a longer look this weekend. So, as we get into the actual 3 things, first and foremost, I want to see the defense improved a little bit. Look, you're fighting through some rust, obviously, there. LSU's working a lot of different situations where pressure is being put on, defenders. We talked about the sacrifice bunt from Ashton Larson that Cade Arenbeedy threw up the line. Well, Larson gets out of the box well, coming from the left side. It was a perfect bunt. It was right to where only the catcher could get it, but he had to go a long way still to get it. You just put that one in your pocket type thing. Young player, has a cannon of an arm, trusts it. That's a really good thing. But eventually, with more reps and time in that situation, he'll put that ball in his pocket, and you'll live to fight another day. You kind of want to see that starting to show. But again, that's a product more of the situation, and you're just going to learn that with more reps. What I really want to see cleaned up is things that happen in the field on just hard hit balls. Those 2 late hops ate up Jared Jones at first base in that Sunday scrimmage. That's a play we've seen him make time and time again. And we're going to talk plenty about Jared Jones. And I don't want this to come off as me being worried about Jared Jones's defense. I'm not. Jared Jones has fielded 990 in his career so far at first base over at first base at LSU. 990. Like, the drop-off from Trey Morgan to Jared Jones has been minimal. Minimal. If you're really being honest with yourself. So I'm not worried about his defense. It's just, it was jarring, we'll say, to see him get eaten up by those 2 balls that he did, just because it's a play that you've seen him make plenty over there. But I do just want to see the defense cleaned up a little bit. And look, we talked about this when we recapped that scrimmage. There were great things defensively. Like Michael Braswell looked like he fit in very well over at third, made a great play, ranging in front of Stephen Milam at short, threw on the run and hit Jones right in the chest. That was fantastic. Milam made a couple of nice plays. One shifted over to the right side of the infield, the right side of the second base bag, but still playing shortstop, right? Where he had to range back over towards his normal position, scoop, throw, all in one motion. He hit Jones in the chest. He made a nice play where he ranged over to the third base side, backhanded stop, planted and through. Throw was short, but it was on line and allowed for a much more manageable scoop for Jared Jones. So you saw Mikey Ryan had a really, really nice play, actually to nab Stephen Milam running down the line, coming from the left-handed batter's box because there was a righty on the mound. So there were positives. But what I'm looking for, again, is bounce back from Jones. I don't mean to just highlight him and single him out, but it was a rough day. He's been much better than that throughout his career, and he will bounce back, but I'd like to see it. And the one thing else that I haven't mentioned, we mentioned to throw up the line from the catcher position, keeping the ball in front a little bit more. I understand wild pitches happen in the game of baseball. It hits the dirt, and man, it can ricochet just about anywhere. That's a really tough thing to defend against. But it's something I saw in the fall when I was out there a couple times, and it's something I saw again in the on Sunday in the quote unquote spring. There's just been a lot of balls go to the backstop. And that's I highlight that because y'all that's been a problem for LSU the past couple of years. It just has. And it's cost you games. Like it has cost you runs in games. And that's something you absolutely have to clean up. You have enough options back there behind the plate going into 2025. And receiving is obviously very important. You can steal strikes. You can do all that. Like that's the underrated part of catching. Everyone focuses on guys throwing runners out and things like that. Receiving is really what's huge. But man, keeping the ball in front, that's a big part of receiving back there. And that's something that LSU, that's an area that LSU has to get better at. I understand. They're not going to block every single ball. They're college players. Not every single one of these guys is going to go play in the major leagues. A lot of them are going to go play professional baseball, but not all of them are going to make it up to the major league level. Okay. And you see wild pitches in Major League Baseball. It goes back to what we just said, where it's, the ball hits the dirt and it ricochets. That's baseball. Sometimes things break your way. Sometimes they don't. But the frequency that balls are getting past the LSU backstop, that is something that because I got to a point last year where I was so frustrated with it. And it's something that absolutely has to improve going forward. So I will be looking at that very intently when I'm out there. And you'll get to see multiple catchers. And we'll get to get eyes on multiple guys back there as well. So that's going to be huge. What all of that kind of also ties into, well, let me not go there yet, actually. We'll save that for last. Number 2, LSU offensively, when I was out there Sunday, did a lot of good things. And we talked about that extensively. We don't need to rehash everything that they did in the recap, but it was very aggressive. Steals, hit and runs, bunts, sack, and squeeze. And that created a lot of production. Sack flies, RBI groundouts, all things that are great and are very important to the game of baseball, especially offensively, that you have to have. It doesn't matter if it's a hit or a run that's walked in. All that matters is you get the run in, right? That being said, I would like to see more hits this go round. And let me qualify that by saying I do not believe LSU is a bad offensive team. LSU will hit the ball. Jay Johnson's teams hit, and you have plenty of talent, and you have plenty of capable hitters. But judging by being out there, Sunday. Sunday was a bit of a mixed bag. And then Monday, it does look like the pitchers have kind of had the upper hand the last couple of times out. Would like to see the off. And again, that's just in keeping guys from getting base hits. Production offensively has been very good when it comes to runs. But I do want to see some of these guys, veterans and even newcomers, start to find the outfield grass a little bit, if you will. And see if you can't string together some base hits and get the runs across there, just to make you more versatile offensively. And in that same vein, the power. It's interesting. We kind of touched on this earlier in the week where, what are the power numbers going to look like for this LSU team? Jared Jones has a chance to hit 30 homers, but who else is there to get to 20? And Jay Johnson even himself said he doesn't know if that guy's on this team this year, and doesn't really know if he wants guys who are capable of it to try, because then you get into some trouble. LSU will hit the ball out of the park. If for no other reason than when it warms up down here in late March, April, and then obviously into May and June, the box just becomes a launching pad. The south wind blows out, and a lazy fly ball could go over the bleachers in left field. Like, we just know that about this particular stadium. And add on top of that, the rest of the league outside of Texas A&M, LSU, and no, that's kind of about it. Play in friggin' high school stadiums where it's like 320 down the line and 380 to center field. The parks are smaller and you could drive the ball out of them. LSU will hit plenty of home runs. What's going to be interesting, though, is when they get into other situations, maybe later in the season in Hoover, things of that nature, how that looks. Why I want to see more base hits is just this is something we talked about in 2023, because everybody thought LSU was so reliant on the home run in 2023, which was such a fallacy. And they proved that in Hoover. But it's something we talked about there, scoring in multiple ways, stringing those hits together. The sack flies, the squeeze bunts, the RBI ground outs, all those things. The power. Okay, you get two guys on, bam, 3-run homer. You love it. The versatility of an offense. And you saw that specifically in 2023. You saw it down the stretch for LSU last season. I want to start to see that come together now, because again, for me, this season, it's all about how quickly can it come together for this team. Now we'll get to the third thing, because all of that kind of ties in together. Defense, offense. Now, as we go into the second week of preseason camp scrimmages, getting out there multiple times, we can start really focusing on the position battles. And that's what I want to see. Does anybody start to separate themselves in those position battles? The left side of the infield, Milam, Braswell, do they settle into those roles more? Do you start to see them get more time at one position, right? That's going to be very telling. Behind the plate at catcher, that's probably the one that's most uncertain. Cade Arambidi maybe feels like he has the inside track right now. He definitely has the highest upside of any of your catchers on this team. But Luis Hernandez is there. Blaze Priester, who we have not talked a lot about here so far since the show's been back. Talked about him plenty, in the transfer portal class and things of that nature. And Blaze Priester's a guy most of us are very familiar with by this point. Local kid out of Live Oak, started his career at LSU in 2023, but redshirted, didn't play, went to junior college, and now is back. But that's another option. Very powerful player who had a tremendous offensive fall. 360, 440 on base, 7 homers, led the team. He's a guy that fits into multiple position battles. Not only catcher, but designated hitter. LSU's got 7 guys, Jay Johnson says, that could slot in at DH. And while it's tempting to just rotate those guys in based on matchups and all those things, and some of that is needed in baseball, fully understand. It'd also be great to just have your one guy roll out there. You can do it against righties. You can do it against lefties. You can do it late in the game, early in the game. You can do it throughout. You're the DH. Go out there, because Blaze Priester is potentially a guy that could be the 20-homer, the other 20-homer guy on this team. Whether it's from the catcher spot or the DH spot. Oh, well, don't care, right? But those are two interesting battles because you have guys there that can serve multiple roles. Same goes with a guy like Luis Hernandez. Hernandez is, if he's not catching, is a DH candidate. Eddie Yaman. Or Yaman. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is. Eddie, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. He is a guy that can do multiple things for LSU. Outfield, first base, catch, DH. First base, yeah, Jared Jones probably going to have that on lock, but, we'll see. Okay, if he's not catching, can he battle into that DH spot? We talked about Ashton Larson earlier this week. Okay, if Larson's not out in the outfield, that's a bat that hit 298 for even your leading hitter in SEC play for the majority of the season. Yeah, that's absolutely a candidate at designated hitter. The one thing I do like about LSU's lineup as it presents itself currently, there's a lot of balance in lefty-righty. And that's something that Jay Johnson loves. He wants to alternate that throughout the entire lineup. Righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty throughout. We've learned that in 3 years of him being here. And in 22 and 23, when he had just arguably the best offense in the country, he was able to do that. Last season, not as much. But this season, that looks like that will be back. So that will be very interesting to see as well. Should have included that in the offensive part of this. But then you have the outfield as well. And that's the same deal where you have guys who, if they're not in the outfield, are candidates for DH. So catcher, outfield, DH, just kind of all go hand in hand because you have a lot of great offensive weapons that you just got to find spots for. And I truly, truly believe LSU's outfield defensively this year will be elite. With just about any combination you throw out there. I mean, Derek Curiel, the freshman standout who D1 Baseball just named the preseason SEC Freshman of the Year, looks like he's going to be perfectly fine defensively. Obviously, at the plate, all those things. We know what Chris Stanfield is. We've seen him play for, what is it, 3 years at Auburn? 2, 3, multiple years. LSU played them every year. You saw that kid out in center. He is elite defensively. And then Jake Brown, Ashton Larson, Josh Pearson. Like, you've seen those guys make awesome plays out there with the glove, with the arm, all of those things. So defensively in the outfield, you're going to be elite, I think, no matter who you throw out there. For me, it's going to come down to the offensive aspect of that for LSU. So, we'll kind of see. Again, a lot of this will rehash because after you get a look this weekend, and hopefully there's some separation there, we can really go more in depth on the position battles. But there you go. That's 3 things that I'm watching for when I'll be out there at the box this weekend. Defense in the field, but also behind the plate, keeping the ball in front. More hits. Still great offensive production. Want to see it in multiple different ways, but want to see if you can string hits together against this pitching staff for LSU. And then separation and position battles. Is one guy sticking in one spot more often than not? Just things of that nature. And again, it all goes hand in hand with offense, defense, special teams. No, offense, defense, and that's how you'll ultimately get your separation. Those are 3 things, obviously, to watch here as LSU goes about their second week of scrimmages. Lastly, before we wrap up, a couple more honors from D1 Baseball. It's that time of year where they are going to release their preseason lists, all right, of the top 10 players at this position in college baseball. LSU, 2 players honored, and one of them is Jared Jones, and that's where we're starting. I'm sorry, 3 players honored. Just saw a new one. We'll start with Jared Jones because he is the number 1 ranked first baseman in the country per D1 Baseball. And I find that incredibly well deserving. And Jared Jones should also see some All-America honors start to trickle in preseason as well. This is a guy who's hit 300 for his career. He's got 301 to be exact in his career, 42 homers, over 100 RBI. He's fielded 990 at first base, as we mentioned, over 2 seasons. He's been awesome. And this is a huge year for him where he turns down the draft. This is a draft eligible sophomore, now goes into his junior season. This is going to be massive in terms of in that aspect for him, but also in a leadership role for LSU, hitting in the middle of the lineup for LSU, all of those things. It's a well-deserved honor, and it fits. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better first baseman in America than Jared Jones. And I'm glad to see him get this recognition, because we didn't have this conversation on Musso at the Box, had it on LSU Daily. By the way, subscribe to LSU Daily if you haven't done that either. It covers all LSU athletics with me as the host. Perfect Game, they do a great job. Like, they really do. Very reputable, do fantastic work covering high school, college, even professional baseball. They do awesome work. They left Jared Jones off the top 100 juniors in college, which was not only was it laughable, it is a gross oversight. That's the only explanation, that it was a gross oversight. And that is further illustrated here by D1 Baseball, who there's no one who does a better job covering college baseball than D1, having him as the best first baseman overall in the entire country. The best first baseman overall in the entire country is definitely one of the top 100 juniors. So not to rehash that, but congratulations. That's a great honor for Jared Jones moving forward. Luis Hernandez, number 10 catcher in all of college baseball per D1. And again, that makes the battle there even more intriguing, because this is a guy that, when you look at when he came in from Indiana State, was number 32 in Baseball America's top 100 transfers. 32nd, I should say. He was a member of Puerto Rico's national team. They came in second place, got the silver medal back in September. And his last season at Indiana State, he was just incredible. 359, 14 doubles, 23 homers, 76 RBIs. Like, yeah, that fits. And he's versatile, first base, catcher, and hitter at Indiana State. So, we'll see kind of where he goes, where he plays for LSU. DH, he might get some run at first if Jones needs a day off, things of that nature. Obviously, catcher, he could win that job. We'll just keep it see. But that's a huge honor for him as well, and further illustrates the caliber of player that LSU did get in Luis Hernandez coming in from Indiana State. And then the one that I actually just came across is Danny Dickinson, number 3 second baseman in the country per D1 baseball. And that does look like the spot that Dickinson will fill for LSU. It looks like you got to get your settle on the position, but it does look like the left side of your infield will be Milam Braswell in some order there. So Danny Dickinson will probably play second base. And this is a very well-deserved honor for him as well. Baseball America ranked him number 2 in the top 100 college transfers. 27 homers a year in 2 seasons, I should say, in 2 seasons at Utah Valley. 369 career hitter. Like, he's been awesome. All first team WAC. You will wonder, okay, how does that translate coming from the WAC to LSU, going from the altitude out in Utah to the heavy air and humidity that is Baton Rouge, Louisiana in, I don't know, 12 months out of the year. So, you'll see actually how that goes. Maybe the homers take a dip, but one thing's for sure, kid can put the bat on the ball. Like, the hitting for average aspect with Danny Dickinson, that's not going to go anywhere. So congratulations to those guys. All 3 of them are expected to play, obviously, big roles for LSU, specifically on the offensive side, but also in the field. So Jared Jones, number 1 first baseman in the country per D1. Danny Dickinson, number 3 second baseman in the country per D1. And Luis Hernandez, number 10 catcher in the nation per D1 baseball. All right. That's going to wrap it up here today for Musso at the Box. Subscribe, share, like, all of that is greatly appreciated. Be on the lookout Sunday evening. We should have a scrimmage recap dropping Sunday evening on YouTube. It will drop the following morning on podcast apps and things of that nature. Kind of get back to that schedule that we had last season on the show, where the YouTube drops in the evening and the podcast follows first thing in the morning. That worked really well. So kind of want to bring that back. If something does change in the recording schedule, keep it locked on my social medias. It will be announced there. Thank you for tuning in. Always greatly appreciated. And be here next time for more on Musso at the Box.